everybody. Welcome to another edition of Head On. Tonight we're here to talk about the post-holiday blues, post-holiday stress, the January blues, and what we can do to empower ourselves to move through these times in a more effective way. And to guide us through that, our guest tonight is Ian Gartshore from the Integrated Counselling. Welcome, Ian.
Thank you very much, Elizabeth.
Lovely to have you here.
I'm glad to be here.
Are you feeling blue?
No.
You're dressed in blue, that's all.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yes, well, I could say it was really bright and put this on just for tonight, but I didn't. Sorry. I like your red.
Thank you.
Good contrast.
Yes, exactly. Now, Ian, why this time of year? How come it is that people are more sort of down and out or depressed? Or why is this time of year typically a difficult one for people to navigate through?
It's a very good question, Elizabeth. Now, I can't say for sure that the Blue Monday is really the bluest day. I think it's more of a marketing ploy for some travel agency to send people off to warm climates.
True.
But what is known is that January, December, and February are hard months. And for us, of course, we have weather where it typically gets quite outcast and cloudy and rainy. Or we had that snow, which was really hard for people to get around in for a while and cold. So it's a darker month or months, and we typically spend all of our time indoors.
True.
We try to avoid outdoors.
Yeah.
And we know that outdoors are where people need to be at all times of the year. So because we're now in, and we also go through this frenzy called Christmas. Christmas is when you're supposed to build up and be really, really happy and everything's supposed to be great and all the relationships are just perfect.
Yes.
And when that doesn't happen,
Yeah.
it takes us about 3 months, we find, before people finally say, look, this is still not working, we're not happy, I'm not happy, whatever. And then the phone starts ringing more after about 3 months.
So the uptake for people in your profession or divorce lawyers is early spring. In fact, some of the law offices call the month of January divorce month because, as you say, people sort of got through that holiday period thinking, we'll just get through this and then we'll, do something about this situation that we're in.
There's one other thing, money.
Yes.
Oh, I totally overspent the budget, and now trying to scrape together enough to pay the rent, pay the mortgage, to keep the car payments going, whatever it might be, feed the kids, etc. When there isn't enough money, then that's a real cause for anxiety.
Very much
And then
so.
people start fighting because, well, why'd you do that? Or how come you're spending that? Or whatever. And so even though people say, a lot of folks think that money is the cause of divorce, it's not. But it is definitely a stress thing for a lot of people.
And for people with any kind of like eating disorders or that type of thing, this can be a very tough time of year too as well. Yes. And there's just a lot of factors that are happening at this time of year with the seasonal adjustive disorder, SADS, not getting enough vitamin D from the sun, not outside.
You got it.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about the healing power of nature and nature walks and how that can help boost the system.
Well, it took us a lot of research dollars to figure this out that First Nations have known for centuries. And that is, this is not healthy for us to stay inside all the time. It isn't. So the research is now very solid that getting exercise and being outside are actually more beneficial to most people, than antidepressant medications. The other thing is that if you go for a walk in nature with trees by the seaside, it's very interesting because the seaside actually creates negative ions, which sounds negative, it sounds bad, but actually those are the feel-good ions that our bodies need. And in nature, when you go into trees, particularly evergreen trees, even on a cold, crispy day, they're actually setting off what we call essential oils. And when we breathe those, or if we can absorb them into our bodies, then they actually help us to do better physiologically and emotionally.
Wow.
Plus, fresh air. Our indoor air quality typically is not very good inside of our homes and buildings, unless they're commercially ventilated like this one is. And so to be outside, we can actually breathe more deeply when we're outside. And people feel better for a good reason.
Exactly.
So when people say, oh, but it's raining, I say, rain gear does exist, and it's good. Because even if you're not a sunny day, you're still getting some of that daylight. It's good.
And I think that also helps people sleep better. If you get outside, get fresh air, a bit of exercise, whatever the form that might take, I think you'll have a more restorative sleep, which will also help with
depression, anxiety, relationship issues, all kinds of things. Being able to function at work, being able to be better with your kids. Yeah, it's a good thing.
It is a good thing. And so is counseling. So what are some of the benefits that a person or a couple or a family would receive if they took some counseling, for example, from Integrated Island Integrated Counseling?
Yes, it's a mouthful.
It
I didn't
is.
name it. Don't blame me.
What are some
So the
counseling
benefits. Most people who come to us come with a handful of different issues. One is depression, another one is anxiety, and anxiety we're seeing a lot more of that. That's a big thing. We gave a series of talks a few months ago, and the one on anxiety was the most well-attended workshop of them all, or seminar of them all. Why is that happening? Well, we can go into that more, but those are two of the presenting ones. Then anger follows that, and then relationship issues. And of course, to some degree, they're all kind of tied up.
are.
If you deal with one, it's going to help with the other one.
Yes.
So talk therapy, which is what we're kind of known as the generic kind of thing. There are other types of therapy out there as well. But talk therapy generally helps people to focus on what is this about? Because often we would consider anxiety to be a problem,
Right.
that it's negative, that's bad. But in reality, it's hard. I don't like feeling anxious any more than anyone else does, and it can be really derail my day. But anxiety, for example, is there to give us some information. Just like the lights on the dashboard of your car or vehicle, if it would be really dumb if you took black electrical tape and taped all your dashboard because you say, I don't want to be bothered with those lights and indicators and all that kind of stuff. Well, if we try to medicate, and sometimes medication is helpful and necessary, but if we try to medicate the symptom rather than get to the root of the problem, then we just we manage, but we don't resource ourselves. So for example, I know a woman who was being abused by her husband, had anxiety issues. The doctor wanted to give her antidepressant or anti-anxiety medication, and so she did that, and it was kind of helpful, but she wasn't really getting to the root of the issue.
Right.
Thankfully, I had the time with her to find out that she was getting abused by her husband. So then I helped her to take what she was doing against herself, abusing herself with her anger, called depression. She was able to tap into that anger and free herself from that situation. She was able to confront her husband in such a way, not abusive, but in such a way that he realized, oh, you're a human being, and I should treat you as a separate human being entitled to your own thoughts, feelings, actions, words, whatever. And when he realized that and realized that he wasn't protecting her, that he was abusing her, then he made big changes in how he was doing. And so their marriage ended up being actually better in the end.
And that's the thing with any crisis. It can be a very transformative experience. It can be an opportunity for metamorphosis for a couple or an individual or a work relationship, that type of thing. But as you say, you have to acknowledge what's going on there, take those early warning signs, listen to what that anxiety is telling you, or that fear or that hesitation, and listen to that and find out what's that trying to tell you.
Exactly, it's a message.
It is a message.
And if we can put it into words, by the way, Elizabeth, if we can actually name what it is we're experiencing, then that will be the most helpful thing we can do at that moment. Rather than just think about it but not really name it.
Yes. Now, what happens in a marital situation, for example, when a couple has gone through difficulty for a period of time and they've tried counseling, maybe together or separately, and they're going along? At what point does a couple decide that it's time to end this relationship? How do they come to that determination?
Well, I can't really answer that question because there's so many variables to that. But I can say to you that a lot of counselors, not to put other counselors down, I'm not into that, but a lot of counselors don't have a lot of training in couples or marriage therapy. And so what they'll do is they'll treat the individuals as individuals because that's how they know how to function. But actually I see the couple as well as being two people, but also a third thing in between them called the relationship. And that is an equal client to the two of them. So then I end up working with them to talk with each other and to work through things. So for example, when a spouse says to another one, I don't feel like I'm in love with you anymore, that could be a sign that the relationship is over. And so a lot of therapists would say, well, I guess you're not to be together anymore and I'll help you separate maybe. But I see that as an opportunity for intimacy. What do you mean? That's a horrible thing to hear from your spouse or partner, right?
Yes.
It's horrible. It's devastating. This
Yes.
means it's the end. But actually it doesn't. It means that they're now at least willing to share with you what's going on inside of them at that moment in time.
And learn some new communication skills, some brave ways to talk about what it is that made this build up to be such a big problem.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it actually isn't just communication, because actually the research shows that communication techniques don't save marriages.
Really?
Yes, I
What
know.
saves
It's very
marriages
strange. Being willing to lean in there with each other and hear each other out and understand more at a deeper level what's going on for you without taking it personally.
That's the key.
Because if I take it personally, then I'm going to react,
Yeah.
and the way I react, you're going to react to that, and now we're hooped.
Yes. Yeah,
That's what happens. So when couples come to me, I help them detangle all of that. It's like a ball of wool that's been all messed up. So step aside. Okay, now you can look at each other as two people who are not all tied and don't have to be tied by the umbilical cord. And I don't have to react. You don't have to you don't make me anything. I'm reacting because that's my reaction,
I
so
own
you
it.
can do whatever.
Yeah, again, a crisis like that can bring a couple closer together. It can be transformative rather than, a separation.
Absolutely. An affair can actually be a catalyst for that. An affair.
An affair can be a catalyst.
You
to
believe.
a
Now, I
better
don't
marriage.
recommend that people
No.
go have affairs.
You heard it here first. Sort of when something really needs to change, when the need to change overrides the fear of change.
Right.
And I thought that was so well stated. And that's exactly where, we find ourselves in various points of our life, but especially in a marriage relationship or a relationship with your children. Some of those things can be very difficult. But yeah, I really like that when the need to change overrides the fear of change. And fear can keep us, held back so often in life and lead to, disastrous choices.
You know what fear is an acronym?
Tell me.
It's called false experiences appearing real.
Oh, I like that.
Now, of course, the fear of putting a hand on a hot element is not a false experience. It hurts. But the false experience of believing this or that, when I'm interpreting in my own ways, well, that may not be true. And if I'm creating fear out of something that's not real, then it's not helpful.
No, it isn't. No. Ian, you've got a couple of workshops coming up.
Yes.
Let's just speak a bit to the mindful change one that's appearing, and who might be a candidate for that, and what's being offered at that workshop.
We're really excited. This is the second time we've run it here in Nanaimo. It's now researched quite thoroughly in the States, and it shows itself as being effective for people with any kind of emotional problems. So anxiety, depression, anger, feeling stuck. That's it's an emotion of a different kind. People who they just find they're not coping very well. They're really struggling with their lives. Or people who say, my life is okay, but it's not what I really want it to be. So you were saying earlier that you retired and that you're reworking yourself in terms of what it is you're doing in your life, which is fantastic. This group could be effective for somebody who's making some changes in their life and they just don't know who they are and what they're about. They've worked for the government for all these years and they did that well, but they don't know what's going on for themselves. Or it can be for somebody who is really struggling in a relationship and their mate's not willing to go for couples counseling, and so they will come to this, and that will help shift some ground for them so that will bring some new vitality to their relationship.
And again, finding a new purpose. Sometimes in life when you go through various passages, you're kind of left rudderless.
Yep.
And rudderless can be a very painful place to be for people until they find a new anchor point, where to, start leaping off, finding new interests, hobbies, ways to be relevant again. And I liked, there's 3 things that you sort of need for purpose. I read recently, it's every day you wake up, something to do, someone to do it with, and something to look forward to.
Yes.
And I thought,
Beautiful.
if each of us reminded ourselves of that each day, we'd be enriching our own lives in small ways, which enriches those lives of those around us as well. But yeah.
Absolutely. And this one's called Mindful Change. It's called Acceptance and Commitment Therapy, or ACT, because it helps people to actually go forward. in their lives. So we're very excited to do this with Laura Lynn. She's a play therapist, and she's very smart, and she knows this stuff very
Play
well.
therapy. Where do I sign up?
Yes, exactly. Well, she's got an amazing room too for play.
Now, is this sort of an ongoing series of workshops that you offer there at Island Integrated Counselling? Yeah.
Yes, so we have that one, and one we've been doing for at least a decade, if not longer, which is for women who are really struggling with anger, or what we call frustration often, and or depression, because depression is often anger turned against myself. So it's an abusive anger, just like abusing somebody else might be an abusive anger.
Right.
So what this group does is, instead of managing anger, we often talk about anger management. No, this is not about managing. This is called empowering people to take their anger and to do something, or depression, and do something helpful with that that's going to propel them forward in their lives. So we do that on a regular basis. Both groups are going to be run this coming month, starting in this month, in February, which is a really good month, because February is actually the bluest month.
It is,
I find.
Yes.
Yeah, for a lot of people. So it's a good time for them to get launched, to go forward in their lives, basically. And because we're a nonprofit, we try to suit everybody's needs. We're not going to give it away for free to everybody, because we do have to pay some bills. But yeah, it's good. So and we have some students too who are co-leading these groups, and able to take new clients on too. So I'm supervising them, and they're delightful women. I'm very glad to be doing that too with the agency.
Very good. And these are VIU students in psychology programs, or?
No, these are master's level students, Elizabeth. And so they come from all over the place. We have one in Vancouver, one in Lethbridge, and one from the East Coast. It's a distance education program. So yeah, we don't work with bachelors, we work with master's level. So these are people who are basically professionals. They're just getting their practical experience before they graduate.
That's fantastic. What a wonderful pool of resources here that we have right on our doorstep here in the Central Island area for anybody that's struggling with those. Now, what about individuals that might be struggling with eating disorders or that type of thing, Ian? What do you offer there? And there's men and women who suffer with that.
Yes, it is mostly women. Unfortunately, I don't know exactly what that's all about, except that we do know that society puts a lot of pressure on women to look a certain way and to act a certain ways. And there is still lots of repression of women going on, despite our wishing otherwise. So I suspect that's probably some of the reasons. But we do have a woman who's a therapist. She's got a master's in social work, who specializes in eating disorders. She's done lots of training. She's got lots of experience. We actually put her through a year of an internship with another gal who's now retired from us. And she's really into helping women and men because we do have some men who just don't have a very good relationship with food. That's what it really is. And it's a way of trying to control ourselves, but it backfires and it ends up doing terrible things to people. In fact, it's got the highest death rate of any mental health issue.
Really? I did not know that. Wow. And does that often result in suicide, or is it just the body becomes so physically run down that you just lose the fight?
Well, eventually the heart will stop.
Yes.
So it is a suicide, if you like. It's not an intentional one where I'm going to, slash my wrists or whatever. It's a very long, horrible process. And for people who love them, to see them go through that is just an excruciating process. We had one gal who came to us for one session, and then she went down to Victoria for a month to be hospitalized there because she was so thin that she could not function. So they were able to get some food into her and get some nutrition, and she came back, and she's been working very successfully with us ever since and doing much better. And she's not totally out of the woods, but she's doing much better.
Again, tools, ways to be empowered through this. And not only for the individual, but those that are around them too, how they can cope with that. Grief counseling, is that something you also offer for people that have suffered a loss and are going through that long process?
You'd be surprised, Elizabeth, how many people do grieve without realizing it. We have tiny, tiny little griefs, many of them. It may be, my favorite car got smashed up in a car accident. That's a grief. And not only that, but I'm not feeling safe on the roads. So that's a type of grief too. My favorite pet died. I lost a job. I'm grieving getting older, and I can't do as much as I used to. There are many, many different griefs, but they don't often present themselves as such. It may present itself as an anxiety, for example, because of the car accident, but there's some grieving going on in there, and letting go of the fact I cannot control everything in the world, including my own aging, and just accepting that that's part of what it means to be in life.
Yes, that's life.
So yes, we work with all kinds of different situations, and we look for not just the presenting situation, because there are often other things that are interplaying with that presenting issue too.
Yeah, what you present with could be completely different when you've helped them unravel what the presenting problem was and what the reality actually is. Yeah.
To me, the beautiful thing about being a therapist, I'm really honored when I get to work with clients because they open themselves to me. They trust something of themselves with me, and then we develop a relationship that allows them to go further into something that they would do if they were just chatting with somebody or being with a family member, which I encourage people to do this with friends and family members and others, because we all need to belong, we all need community. We can't, as therapists, we can't do it all by any means. But when something is that difficult, that painful, that they realize I can't live with this any longer and I want to do something better, then yes, they come in and we get to sift through what's going on and help them to find better ways to function, to live their lives, to free them.
Yes. Just go back to that word community again, because that is so important, and to have someone to talk to. And with all the messaging around social media, I think it's become the anti-social media in many regards. And I think it creates a lot of isolation for people. They tend to stick more, on their social media sites than they are out interacting with people or meeting up for coffee or lunches or having that face-to-face contact. There's no replacement for that.
Yes, it would be nice if it would be so handy, but it doesn't work that way at all, unfortunately. In fact, smartphones are actually increasing our divorce rate. Why?
Hang up the phone. What?
Because even if you're not on it and you're with your mate,
You're not present.
you're listening for it to beep. There's going to be some social thing that comes through, or somebody texting you something really juicy, and so, I'm going to go to that. If you want to connect with your mate, turn off your phones. Turn them off.
That. One little tip for 2017.
Yeah, exactly.
One small step.
Because what will happen is something that you didn't plan that's going to be really good, that's going to help your relationship.
Because what that constant phone is saying is anything is more important than you at this moment.
Yes.
That phone call, that text
Yes.
is more important than you. And that's not the message any partner wants to receive.
No. So we call it pseudo-relationships.
Pseudo-relationships.
Yes, when it's with and I love Facebook. I spend time on there and I get all kinds of information. I stay connected to the community to some degree. But to spend time with you, for example, I'd rather do this anytime than be on Facebook, because you're a real life human being.
I am.
You are.
Here I am.
And you're asking me good questions, and I like that too.
There you go. Now, one thing I discovered the other day on the Canadian Mental Health Association website was something called the Bounce Back Quiz.
Yes.
And it's interesting for anybody who's, going through a bit of a tough time or feeling a bit low or down or a bit out of sorts. I took the quiz myself, and it's very simple to take. It takes about 5 minutes, and you get pretty quickly instant feedback from the website on it. And it's a wonderful resource, and people just go back to we've got the website on the screen here. But if you're feeling a little bit out of sorts, or there's problems in the family or something, it's something that people might want to take. And then it encourages you to go seek counseling. There's resources on there that you can access, and I think it's another tool that people can have in their toolkit as we navigate through these, kind of dark months.
Absolutely.
I was also going to add too, with what's happening down in the States, has been sort of an extra burden, I think, for a lot of people because of the uncertainty this has created, and not quite knowing where are we going here as a neighbor and as a world leader there in the U.S. There's big changes there.
Yeah, you've picked up that kind of low-level anxiety that's out there. Well, what does this mean, and what's going to happen? Well, I can imagine everybody in this part of the world is experiencing that.
Yeah.
And that's natural, but if we can name it, if we can say, I'm anxious about what's going to happen, if we can give a word to that, it will actually help us. I've discovered something. So-called negative emotions that we verbalize out loud and share, so somebody can say, oh, yeah, okay, I get that, can actually help to shrink that feeling. And positive ones, such as love, joy, happiness, peace, contentment, all those ones, if I speak those out loud, they get bigger. So yes, there's a lot of generalized anxiety, I think is the term out there. And we're in it together. And I think that that's really important. You mentioned the word community again. If we don't belong, if we don't fit, if we don't have a community of people that we can fit with, which doesn't happen enough in the Western world, in this part of the world, especially on the West Coast, where we move the most of anyone in Canada. And we have the highest debt ratio, by the way, so that also helps the anxiety stuff. So when we don't feel connected, then when we have that anxiety, we don't feel safe, we don't feel connected to anybody else, well, what happens? The anxiety gets bigger. When we are able to connect with other people, like I'm doing with you right now, then I go, okay, at least I'm not alone in this.
Exactly, exactly. You're not alone. Yeah. No, that's beautiful. So your website is full of wonderful resources that viewers can check out for some of the workshops that are coming up. But what else do you want people to know about the Mindful Change workshop, or anything else that you offer there at Integrated Counselling?
Well, I'm going to say something that isn't counseling,
Okay.
but is part of the agency, and it's something I'm very proud of, and that is that we have in John Barsby School a bicycle repair club. Why would we do that when we're a counseling agency? Because we would rather be proactive and work with youth and give them something meaningful. You mentioned something that earlier, something to look forward to, something that invites them to come to their school. We've actually helped the graduation rate, apparently, by having that activity.
Wonderful.
We also are going to be opening a crisis walk-in clinic in Harewood. And that's going to be starting in mid-February on a Friday evening from 4:30 or so till about 8 o'clock. People who have something emergent that's right now that are maybe not able to drive to the crisis walk-in clinic at Brooks Landing, they can walk or cycle or whatever to our place and get the help that they need.
That's wonderful, Ian. Thank you so much for all the work that you're doing here to build our community, make it stronger, make us more empowered as individuals and as a collective as well. So we thank you so much for coming on tonight. It's a nice way to kick off 2017.
Absolutely.
I hope everybody has something to do, something to look forward to, and someone to do things with during the new year. And our viewers, there's a lot more information available at islandintegratedcounseling.com. You can find information for Ian's contact information on our website as well. And if you have any questions or show suggestions, please feel free to contact Annette Lucas, our executive producer, and we will see you next time on Head On. Thank you.